Jar of pickles. Tuesday morning, 6:45, standing in my kitchen, and I could not get the lid off. Now I need you to understand something before I go any further. I laid tile from the age of 19 until I was 67, 48 years. My knees have been on every kind of floor in 3 counties: bathrooms, kitchens, hotel lobbies, hospital waiting rooms, the entrance hall of a Baptist church that took 6 weeks and nearly broke me. I mix grout by hand in winters cold enough to crack the buckets. I carried marble slabs that 2 ordinary men would have needed help with. My hands were never the problem. I stood there maybe 3 minutes, twisted, tapped the edge on the counter, twisted again, nothing. And my very first thought, alone in my own kitchen at 7 in the morning was, don't let Raymond find out about this. Raymond is my son, 53 years old, lives 20 minutes away, calls every Sunday like a clock. And standing there with a jar of pickles I couldn't open, my first instinct was to hide it from him. That's when I knew something had shifted. Not the jar, the hiding. I'm 91 years old, born 1934, outside of Macon, Georgia, back when Macon was the kind of place where everybody knew which families had indoor plumbing and which ones didn't. We didn't. My father worked the lumber yard. He wasn't a talking man, not because he had nothing to say, but because his generation Southern men, they didn't have much practice describing their insides. They just worked. Up in the morning, work, come home, eat, sleep, work again. That was the whole language. I learned from him that way. Started as an apprentice at 19 under a man named Haskell. Tall, thin, quiet. Haskell knew tile the way I've never seen anyone know a material since. He could look at a corner of a room and tell you exactly how many cuts you'd need without measuring. I asked him once how he learned that. He said, from getting it wrong enough times. That was the only philosophy he ever shared with me. I worked under him for 7 years. Then I went out on my own. Then 40 more years went by like someone turned off a light and turned it back on, and somehow I was 67 with knees that had finally had enough. The last floor I ever laid was a kitchen in a farmhouse outside of town. Cream-colored ceramic, small hexagonal tiles, the old-fashioned kind. The woman who hired me had picked them out from a catalog, and she kept apologizing for how fussy they were to set. I told her I'd done fussier, which was true. I finished that floor on a Thursday. Drove home. Didn't tell Elaine it was the last one. I don't think I knew it yet myself. Elaine used to say I didn't know how to be still. She said it the way you say it, looks like rain, not a complaint, not a compliment. Just a fact she'd observed over the years and filed away. She wasn't wrong. For 40 years of working, I came home tired in the way I liked. The tired that has a reason. You lie down and your body knows why it's resting. Not the vague, sourceless kind of tired, the specific kind, the kind with an address. When I retired, that tired went away. The first year I told myself I was on vacation. Woke up with nothing scheduled and said, well, this is what you worked for. Then 6 months went by, then a year, and the vacation started smelling different. Elaine saw it before I did. She had a look I'd learned over 61 years of marriage, a look that meant she knew something and was waiting for me to find it myself. She was more patient than me about most things. She was sharper than me about most things, and she knew it, and she didn't let me forget it, which was the right arrangement. She had a laugh. that started quiet and built, like certain storms do. She argued about the thermostat until the last year of her life, and she was always wrong about what temperature the house should be, and she never once admitted it. She passed in April of 2019. We'd been married 61 years. I'm not going to say much more than that right now. Not because it doesn't matter, because I don't have the language for 61 years in a few sentences without making it smaller than it was. What I'll say is this: after she was gone, the things I'm about to describe got louder. I don't know if that's a coincidence. I don't think it is. When you live with someone long enough, part of your body is living with theirs. You calibrate to each other in ways you don't notice until the calibration is gone. And then you notice it all the time. The first time my body asked me a question before I moved, I was around 75. I was in the garage, had a box I needed to put on the top shelf, same thing I'd done 1,000 times since we moved into this house in 1971. I got to the third rung of a 6-rung ladder and I stopped. My body wasn't refusing, it was asking, it wanted a reason. It wanted to know if this was a good idea before it committed. I stood on that third rung for what felt like a long time. Then I climbed up, put the box on the shelf, came back down. Done. But the automatic part was gone. You understand what I mean by that? The part of you that just does things, doesn't consult anyone, doesn't weigh the options, just acts that part had gone quiet. And once it goes quiet, it doesn't come back loud. I didn't tell anyone about the ladder. There's a pattern in that it took me a while to see. How many things I was quietly not mentioning. Not exactly because I was ashamed, but because I didn't have language for them yet. I hesitated on a ladder. How do you bring that up to your son on a Sunday call? Where does it go in the conversation? And because you don't say it, you stop using the ladder. Then you rearrange the garage so the things you need are on a lower shelf. Then one day Raymond comes over to help you move something, looks around the garage, says, "When did you reorganize all this?" And you say, "Oh, a while back. Made more sense this way." That's the part nobody talks about. How much quiet rearranging happens. You slowly redesign your whole life around the things your body has stopped willing to negotiate over. You do it so carefully that nobody notices. Sometimes not even you. The world you're living in gets smaller. And the shrinking looks so reasonable step by step that you don't see it as shrinking. You see it as practical, sensible, made more sense this way. I had a neighbor named Delmar, retired Navy, 78 years old and still solid as a post. And Delmar fell off his own roof cleaning gutters because he would not ask his grandson to do it. Broke his hip, hospital, 4 months in rehab, came out different, smaller somehow, even though he was the same size. I went to visit him. He looked at me and said, "George, I should have asked the boy." That was it. That was the whole thing. I've thought about that sentence more than I'd like to admit, because I understand why he didn't ask. It wasn't just pride, or not only pride. It was the feeling that once you start asking, you're admitting something you're not ready to admit yet. You're admitting the story has changed. And some part of you believes that if you don't admit it out loud, it isn't entirely true yet. February 2020. I was mopping the kitchen floor, turned around too fast, and my feet went out from under me. I sat on the cold floor for a while. Nothing broken. Hip fine, back fine. I just sat there on the linoleum in my socks and looked at the ceiling for a minute. And my first thought, clear, no hesitation, was, I am not calling Raymond. He would have come. No questions, just gotten in the car and driven over. I knew that. But something in me, something that had been making decisions for 90 years, said no. I got myself up eventually. It took some doing. I made sounds. I'm glad there was no one there to hear. Then I went and finished my coffee. I never told him. He might be hearing this now, I suppose. I'm not telling you that's the right way to handle it. I'm just telling you what happened. And I think a lot of people listening know exactly what I mean, that instinct to manage your own reality alone, to keep the circle of people who know things small, because once more people know, it becomes more real. The floor was cold. The coffee was still warm. I drank it and moved on. That's what we do. What I've figured out, and I use the word figured loosely, because I'm still figuring it badly at 91, is that the body changing isn't the hard part. The hard part is the story you've been telling yourself about your body. For 70 years I was a man with good hands and a straight back who could work a full day without complaining and carry his own weight and then some. That wasn't just a physical fact. That was how I understood what I was worth, what I was for. And when the body changes, it isn't just the body that changes. It's the story being revised without your permission, without anyone asking whether you're ready. One Tuesday morning, you're standing in your kitchen with a jar you can't open, and you realize the story has already been rewritten and nobody told you. The jar isn't the problem. The story is the problem. I've watched men handle this badly. Good men. Men who worked hard their whole lives and built something real and couldn't figure out how to be a person once the working stopped or the body slowed down. They get angry, some of them, or they get very quiet in a way that isn't peace, it's just refusal. They stop going places, stop calling people, stop trying the new thing or the unfamiliar street or the restaurant on the other side of town. And the world shrinks. And they call it aging. But I'm not sure it's aging exactly. I think sometimes it's grief that hasn't been named. The loss of a version of yourself you didn't know you were attached to until it was already gone. And grief without a name is hard to move through because you can't even tell people what you lost. You just know something is missing and you can't quite say what. What helped me, and I say this carefully because I'm not handing out prescriptions, was stopping the fight against the new version of the story, not surrendering to it, not rolling over, just stopping the argument. The automatic confidence isn't coming back. The body that didn't ask questions isn't coming back. Elaine isn't coming back. The floors I laid and the years I had and the man I was in the middle of all of that version is done. But I'm still here, 91 years old, sitting at a kitchen table in a house I've lived in since 1971, with a jar of pickles in the refrigerator that I can open just fine now if I use a rubber band and tap the edge twice. Still here, still drinking coffee. Still listening to the house in the morning when it's quiet. That's not nothing. If you're somewhere in your 60s or 70s right now, and you're starting to feel that quiet negotiation your body has begun having with you, those small moments where something that used to be automatic has started asking for a reason, I want you to know one thing. It's not weakness, it's the story changing. And the story changing is not the same as the story ending. If any of this is landing somewhere real for you, Stay around. Subscribe if you want to keep listening. I don't have most of the answers, but I have time, and I have the willingness to say out loud what a lot of people are thinking quietly. That's worth something, I think. I put the pickle jar back in the refrigerator that Tuesday morning, still closed, poured my coffee, sat down at the kitchen table, listened to the house for a while,